right, well, good morning. It is the time and place of our Wednesday, March 5th Boise Airport Commission meeting. It is 9:01. So if we could please have roll call.
Start with Commissioner Boise.
Oh, geez.
Good morning, I'm here.
Commissioner Carlson.
Yes, here.
Commissioner Cunningham. Here. Commissioner Brigadier General Smith. Here. Commissioner Vasconcelos. Here. Commissioner Westerberg. Commissioner Westergaard.
Here.
And Councilman Morales.
All right, so you have received the minutes for the meeting from February 5th, 2025. Are there any corrections?
Chair, I have a minor correction. My name is omitted from roll call. However, I'm pleased to say that I was mentioned in the comments, but I'd like you to show you.
You were here.
Even for roll calls.
You want credit for being here?
I would like that. Please, thank you.
Michelle have that. Any other corrections? Okay, hearing none, entertaining a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved. Second.
Second, Mr. Cunningham. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Carries. Third item on the agenda is unfinished business. There's no unfinished business this month, so we'll just move into the report with Director Hubbs, airport report.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Welcome. Thank you for being here this morning. We've had a busy month for the month of February. It's a short month, but I think you'll be impressed with all of the things that the team has been working on and all that has been accomplished. There's been tremendous progress on a number of the projects that we've been working on. One of the things that we've talked about quite a bit is our new concessions update. We're really excited about this. And as you walk through the concourse, you can see there are new temporary walls, many of them that depict what will be there in the future. We are expecting substantial completion of the Boise Depot, which is on the lower level in early April, the Sawtooth Essentials in early May, and then also Blue Sky Bagels, Pizza Hut, and Protein Bar. That's the new concession area. That's where Forever Heather in the Art Source used to be. That will be in June. And then Waffle Me Up in the Still, we are going through that deaccession process with the work in the middle of the food court there. That's where those will be. And we expect substantial completion of that in early June. So we'll be introducing new concession concepts before we close the existing ones. Also exciting, we have new family restrooms that are going in on Concourse B. This is the area that we used to have as the library on the fly, where we had the Boise Library featured. However, we have a million more passengers going through the airport, so more restroom space is essential. This will allow families who are traveling with small children, people who need companion care, people who need maybe a little more privacy for whatever reason. This will allow individual restrooms, and they're adjacent to our existing restrooms. So it also, I think, will help our custodial crew when they have to close a restroom and people get off of an airplane and they're in a hurry to find a bathroom. So this is exciting to see this come to fruition. This is also scheduled for completion in April. And this was a grant through the bipartisan infrastructure law that funded this project. The consolidated rental car facility, this is a highly visible project as you're driving into the airport. It's on the right-hand side as you come in the airport entry roadway. Level 5 is a third complete. The first concrete placement for the ramps has also been completed. So that's the ramps that you use to drive into the building. And then the customer service building, we had a topping off ceremony on February 25th, meaning that the customer service building has reached its highest point today. So very exciting to see that project As a reminder, that will be completed in 26 in the spring, late spring, early summer of 26. So this project is still a ways out, but substantial progress is being made every day. The concourse development program, terminal improvements. We are working on refining the facility program needs, so identifying what is needed based on the forecast, developing a basis of design, and then we'll begin concourse visioning in March. We have Jacobs Project Management as our owner's representative, again, to provide us advice and counsel as we go through this very large and complex process. We are working on what is called a construction manager general contractor RFQ here. In other parts of the country, it's referred to a construction manager at risk. It basically allows us to bring the construction firm on board as part of the design process and provide input. And it's based on qualifications rather than price. And then we'll bid the price items further through the process. So we released the RFQ on January 31st. Responses are due on the 12th of March. I think we probably have substantial interest in that project. Again, we expect that it's going to be, you know, a concourse with 10 gates. There could be other components as well. So we are expecting substantial interest. There will be a selection committee, and that will be time consuming, but it'll be very much well worth it. We want to make sure that we get the right partner on board. So moving on to passenger boarding bridges, you may remember we received a bipartisan infrastructure law grant last year for $9 million for passenger boarding bridges. This is also associated with Concourse A. This is what we termed as a long lead time item. So we order it well in advance, knowing that it's going to take substantial time for it to be delivered. But we do have to do a proposal process for this. The project is at 75% design, and we'll be formally bidding it this spring. And we're going to talk quite a bit in the near future about our master plan update. As you know, this has been on our work plan for this year. We have issued an RFP and selected Intervistas for this project. We expect the contract will begin later this month. And we'll have a number of different committees that are associated with this project. I think Commissioner Meg was here when we did it last time, so she's familiar with the process. And I think General Smith, you were with the Guard, maybe not on the Airport Commission at the time, but you certainly had a role. So, and I can't remember, Bill, if you were here during the last master plan. But anyway, there'll be an ample opportunity for commissioner input, for public input. There will be technical advisory committees that will consist of some of our tenants. So there'll be opportunity to provide input, a number of open houses. We are refining the scope of work for what is included in that. There's really two key components that have to be approved by the FAA. One is the forecast, and then the other is what we call the Exhibit A, which is the property map and diagram that shows the airport layout plan. I did want to give an update to commission on our GA shade hanger. As you know, we are beginning work on Concourse A and the aircraft parking apron. You can see where the shade hanger is in relation to the future Concourse A. And this summer, we are going to be paving some of the aircraft parking spaces because we need more aircraft parking, commercial aircraft parking. So we will be doing some paving, and we have a plan to relocate impacted tenants to new locations, either T hangers or other shade hangers. So the paving that we're doing will impact shade hangers that are on the south side of the building. So we will either relocate them to the north side, or we will relocate them to T hangers. So eventually, with Concourse A going there, the shade hangers will have to go away. So just wanted to share that with commission because I suspect you may have questions, receive questions about that. Again, we'll look at potential new locations for shade hangers, T hangers, and general aviation activity as part of the airport master plan update. And more exciting news on the air service front. Frontier Airlines has announced that they're returning to Boise. Starting in May of this year, they will offer nonstop flights to Denver. So that will be exciting. And then, of course, Denver is their hub, so it will provide easy connectivity to destinations across the US and Mexico. I mentioned earlier our topping off ceremony for our car rental facility. This was a celebration of the team celebrating the topping off of the consolidated rental car facility with our partner McElvain on this project. And as customary in this particular situation, the employees who've worked on the garage signed the beam, and we just celebrate the event because it is a momentous occasion. So yes, good job to our team. You guys crushed it. We are also debuting a hidden disabilities program, and this is part of our efforts to be a welcoming city for everyone. We're the first site in the city to implement this, but basically, you know, many times people have a disability, but it's not visible. And so this allows someone to wear a sunflower lanyard, and employees will know that that designates that the person has a hidden disability, that they should be aware, mindful, and that this person might need help in some way that they might not otherwise know. So it's discreet, but allows employees to know that an individual passenger might need some additional help. Airport staff will be trained on it. We'll also work with our attendants to train people on it. This is a program not just in Boise, but it has been implemented in other places across the country. So some of our tenants probably are already familiar with it, but we'll be rolling that out here. So, and we have some promotions that I want to highlight. This is really exciting. We have Thomas Anderson, Matt Cooper, and Hannah Hoke. They're all going to be promoted to the role of duty manager. You may recall that's a new role that we added probably 3 years ago. Alex, 3 years? 3 years ago, and the intent is to have a manager who's on site, not just in a particular area, but a manager who has oversight of our entire operation, land side, air side, and who's knowledgeable and can be our eyes and ears when we're not here, because as much as we love this place, Alex and I cannot be here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So those are the other ones. And then Maribel, and I don't want to mispronounce her last name, has been promoted to senior custodian. So we're excited to see employees be able to be promoted within our organization. And in an effort, again, to be a fun airport where people really like to come and visit, we hosted our first, what I think will be an annual Smooch a Pooch for Valentine's Day. People love the therapy dogs, and they certainly bring joy. And, you know, some people are stressed when they travel and they get anxious. And so having the therapy dogs here is a nice touch. So, and again, in keeping with making sure that the airport feels like Boise, and we want to generate that sense of kindness and just the Boise way, we partnered with Boise Nice, and our communications team, Shauna and Jennifer, worked with Boise Nice to do a Random Acts of Kindness on Random Acts of Kindness Day, which was February 17th. They came out to the Boise airport, handed out some free totes, and just demonstrated kindness in a variety of ways. So, and 2025 is proving to be a busy year, not just in terms of projects and things that we're working on, but in terms of passengers, pardon the pun, but they're really taking off. That's interestingly not what we're hearing from our peers. So I think that this is a bit of an anomaly. 9% is a substantial number in any year, but I think especially in this year. So we are expecting that this trend will continue into the foreseeable future. We've talked about our available capacity, and knowing that available capacity is up 13% in many months between now and June. We expect that this trend will likely continue. So that was employments year to date. When we look at the month of January itself, again, 10%. I asked the question, I can see the puzzled look. I had the same question. Why is one up 9% and one up 10%? Because we're looking at enplanements in January. And when we look year to date, we look at total passengers. So there is a slight variation there in the numbers. Either way, it's a lot of people. So I do want to talk about our revenues and expenses. Our revenues continue to be up for many of the reasons that we've talked about before. So for example, our airline revenue is up because the airlines are paying a greater share of the operations for the airfield. Our TNC, the transportation network companies, so the Ubers and Lyfts, we are seeing increased activity, and we did also increase the fee. So we're seeing increases there. And then there was a decrease in the terminal concessions, the retail, and that is due to a timing difference of the payments and the contract, not because of a decrease in actual use. And then when we look at the expenses, there are a few key things that are worth noting. Our indirect cost reimbursement is increased due to an audit adjustment from a prior year. Professional services have increased because of the work that we're doing on BOI upgrade and a number of the other programs that we're doing. The structural, electrical, and plumbing, again, this ties directly to work that we're doing in the terminal. We replaced a roof and a new roof membrane. There's a vapor shield, and in replacing some of our hand dryers that you see in the restroom. So those things all add into that. The credit card fees, again, those equate to, as we've talked about before, increased use of the facilities. And then finally, the fleet management, that decrease is due to the fact that we no longer are doing catering. And so we no longer have catering trucks. And we've also seen a slight decrease in the amount that we're paying for repair on our firefighting trucks. So.
Rebecca,
Yes.
question. On the professional services, I noticed that it went from 57,000 to 737. And it only shows an increase of 100%. Do you cap it at 100 or? Because that's a lot more than 100.
I will have, yes, that is a lot more than 100. I 100% agree. This is a chart that we prepare specifically for commission. So I would have to go back and ask Kathleen if it might just be the way that the column is formatted. It can't be more than 100%, but that increase is related to the fact that we have a substantial amount of work going on for the terminal process. And with that, that concludes my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Director Huff. That's great things happening. I have one quick thing, just because I've heard this from at least one member of the public. So I know you've explained this to us before and for what is there a specific number? This is more based on the concessions of restaurants that may be open at any given time. I just heard from someone that they found it hard. I think it was like 6:30 at night to find something that wasn't totally packed. Like Barden was totally packed, and then they were closing the gate about 7 or something at the store. So I know that, just so everyone can hear, I know there's a certain percentage that has to be open till a certain times.
Yes. So by contract, all of our concessions have to be open until the last flight departs. And, you know, I think we probably have been packed, especially depending on when the person is traveling. For example, if they were traveling the same time that everyone was going out to the Fiesta Bowl. I mean, there are times where we certainly are busy. When you think about, and we've talked about this before, and I'll explain it just so it's recorded. When we proposed our concessions last time, it was 10 years ago. We had 1.3 million passengers going through the airport that year. This year we have, in 2024, we had almost 2.5 million enplanements, 5 million passengers. We have 1 million more passengers going through the airport today than we did the last time we updated our concessions. And so, yes, there are definitely times where it's busy. And that's why when we redid the contracts, we added additional space for additional concessions. And we hope that that will alleviate that while we're going through construction. It is going to continue to be busy because places are going to be closed for construction. while we're working to open new places. So,
Anyone have any questions for Director Hobb?
Madam Chair, Rebecca, I see there are two handouts placed. Could
Yes.
you address those?
thank you. I wanted to mention that. Thank you for jogging my memory. So there's two handouts in front of you. One is related to gate 58 because we've received a number of questions about the closure of gate 58 for the construction of the new concourse. And I'm sure that you have received questions as well. I know we've sent you some memos, but this is a handout that we've been using to explain that. The other item is the Idaho Airport Managers Association hosted a legislative luncheon this past week. Yes, a week ago today, in fact. And we all worked together to host that luncheon for state legislators to talk about priorities within the state for commercial service airports and airports in general. And so that handout there is a handout that we provided to state legislators to talk about our top priorities. And I don't have the handout in front of me, but let's see if I can remember the 4 things off the top of my head. The first one was wanting to have transparency in the way that the state collects and distributes fuel tax. Because there is a aviation tax on fuel, and then it gets distributed out to airports across the state, and we just would like to have transparency on how it's collected and how it's distributed and how those decisions are made about how that funding is distributed. The second item, I believe, was related to there's a discrepancy or there's a difference in the law between the federal law and the state law as it relates to the construction manager at risk, and they're contradictory, not surprisingly. One says you have to use price as a basis of your decision, and the other one says you cannot use price as the basis of your decision, which makes it really hard for us to use that methodology and get federal funding for a project. So we're asking for the state to provide an exemption for airport construction to that particular law. The third item allows the third request is that the state legislature adjust the regulation that prohibits airports from regulating, or any municipality from regulating, transportation network companies. We're asking that there be an exemption for that because we have a lot of congestion at the curb. Also, I would note that Idaho is the only state in the country that does not allow for regulation of transportation network companies at airports. And it actually is contrary to our grant agreements, which require us to charge fair market value for use of our facilities and services. So we're asking that that be changed. And then the final item is we're asking that the state update their economic impact study. It was actually, their last study was done in 2020. We all know there's been across the state just a huge increase in population. And so we're asking for the state to redo that economic impact study so that way we have a clear picture of the impact of airports across the state. So those are the 4 priorities. And then on the back, there's just a little summary of some of the major things that are happening at each of the commercial service airports in the state.
Sure, I have a few questions. Rebecca, I think my first is a 2-part question. You talked about family restroom construction and then I think the passenger bridges, and you mentioned, I think you mentioned grant funding. Are those, I think the first question is, are those federal grants? And the second is, are you seeing any adverse ripple effects to those grants given the current situation of assessing federal funding?
So yes, those are federal funds. They were part of that bipartisan infrastructure law. We are not seeing an impact to those grants. Those grants have been awarded, the funds have been awarded. So the way that those grants work for us is they are reimbursements. So we spend the money and then we apply for reimbursement, but those funds have already been obligated. So I'm not expecting to see but it is an issue that we're tracking very closely. There, as everyone knows, there have been a number of changes in the federal government. There's supposed to be another round of bipartisan infrastructure law grants that could be available this year. We'll see if they are or not, but we do, if they are available, we do intend to apply for further funding.
So the timing helps those two projects. Is there anything you foresee in future projects that will be impacted?
Well, we are trying to decide what projects we will be most likely to receive funding. I think one of the things that we're considering is an upgrade to our baggage system. We know that we need to do that. That has been identified as part of our terminal upgrade program as one of the things that we will need to do. We're looking at the phasing. We think that might be something that we do before we do the rest of it, but we are still in the analysis phase. But that is one thing that we think would score favorably for that program. But it's a competitive process, so you have to look at what are the projects that you want to do, what projects best meet the criteria that have been outlined in the notice of grant availability, and then apply. And so these grants were competitive grants where we were awarded them. Not everybody who applied for the grants were, so.
And just one confirmation as you begin the master plan, that goes out 20 years, is that right?
Yes, the master plan is a 20-year planning horizon.
Great, thank you.
Anyone
Madam
else?
Chair, I have one more question.
Yes.
Was that to me?
Oh, yes.
Sorry. Could you make sure to email me the 2 handouts that were left on the desk because I'm not there today?
You would be happy to,
Um,
yes.
Thanks. And one question for you, Rebecca. The shade hanger relocation and the surface parking relocation seems, I'm not sure. Could you clarify? You mentioned that they're going to be relocated to T hangers, but I know that there aren't any T hanger spots available. And then the shade hangers would be relocated as per the master plan update, but I know that that master plan is going to take longer for that shade hanger position to be relocated. So do you have clarification on where that's going?
So that, I think maybe I misspoke or maybe wasn't as clear as I should have been. So we're relocating the tenants, not necessarily relocating the shade hangers themselves. And we do have sufficient space. The tenants that will be impacted by this year's project, we have identified space in existing shade hangers and in existing T hangers that we are able to relocate them. I think there will be 3 that are remaining, and we're hopeful that over the next year, we'll be able to relocate the ones that are on the north side as well. But
So are you jumping the line for the waiting list for the T hanger to relocate these?
we are prioritizing existing tenants, yes.
I imagine that's going to create some ripples.
I'm happy to have a conversation about that offline, but I think the first priority is to accommodate our existing tenants who've been with us a long time. They'll have an option to go to the T hangers or not. I know we do have a pretty lengthy waiting list for T hangers. We just don't have enough of them.
And there's no space to relocate the shade hangers?
We have not identified a space to relocate the shade hangers. There's, I think we should probably talk about the merits of that. There really isn't a great place. And I think that's something that we need to have a conversation about in the master plan, because if we relocate the shade hangers there, then it takes other future aeronautical uses off the table. And so it's not just as easy as picking up the shade hangers and moving them someplace else. We have to think about the ripple effects of moving them from one place to another. And so if we move them, what are we giving up? And as you know, our space for aeronautical development is very, very limited. So it is not ideal. It's definitely a situation where we have constrained resources and constrained space. If we had more space, it would be much easier, but we are at the point where we have to prioritize, which is going to provide the highest and best use of each of those parcels. And, we do want to make sure that we're addressing and taking care of our existing tenants and not negatively impacting them. So I'm happy to have a conversation about that in greater detail.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? We'll move on to commissioner comments. Commissioner Bosiger, do you have any comments?
I don't. I apologize for not being there in person. I'm in Pocatello this morning, but hope to be and see you in person next month. Thank you.
Commissioner Vasconcelos?
Yeah, so, last month, our son and his wife and our two granddaughters, flew down to, from Canada to ski with us in Sun Valley. And, they flew from Calgary to Denver and then Denver to Sun Valley on United. What was interesting was it was snowing like crazy that night. And my wife and I were a little bit afraid that the flight might be diverted or canceled, but they were able to land without any problem. So in the old days, with snow like that, the flight would have been diverted. So I think things have really improved in that regard, which I thought was interesting.
No additional comments.
To me,
Commissioner Carlson?
So I want to add my congratulations to the 4 employees that are being promoted and clearly that duty manager role is really critical and it's wonderful that you have upcoming leaders who are able to step into those roles. So congratulations to each of them and to the custodian moving up. She looks young and ambitious, so I'd love to see the photos as well. My travel in February was a quick over to Seattle and Alaska. They always do a fabulous job. So no issues over and back.
I haven't had any travel, but I do have some upcoming, so I'll probably have a report next time. As far as comments, I did want to say I just noticed, I don't know how long it's been installed, but I really love the Valley Regional Transit wall that's downstairs. I think that's great to be able to, because I know for visitors, I just think that's an asset that maybe is not taken advantage of as much out of the airport. And so having that connectivity to get to the hotels or to get to where they need to go is great. So whoever brought that on, congratulations. And also congrats to all the promotions. We always love seeing that. So, with that, I believe there is an airport staff report. We are going to hear from Marcus Green on an airport construction update.
All right. Would you like me to?
If you don't
I would
mind.
be happy to.
Super. Good morning, everyone. So just going to give a little update for upcoming airfield construction projects in the next 5-year period, essentially. So we'll start with the most current coming up and just continue on. As Rebecca was discussing, in 2025, we will be constructing the Concourse A apron, and that's essentially over by between Concourse C, where Alaska aircraft are, and then to taxi lane A6, which is in that area of the shade hangar. So it'll be just to the south of the shade hangar, and I'll give a couple exhibits so you can see. We worked with Rebecca and everything on that to make sure that we didn't we impacted the shade hangar as little as possible this year. But just with the construction and everything, the south side of the shade hangar, there won't be access just because of where the construction and how the apron is being built. So the two main projects for 2025, like I said, is the Concourse A apron phase 1 and the East Ice apron expansion. So the phasing here, I'm just kind of giving you the overall, because one of our goals is to try to limit the impact to airfield operations with our projects. So right here, that's going to be the Concourse A apron project. And then over here is the east de-ice apron. So what's happening is when we build this, we have to close down a portion of taxiway alpha because we're building in the safety area and everything. So there won't be any aircraft able to use alpha in that location. So what has happened is with the coordination with the air traffic control tower and everything is we're closing down the north runway 10 left to allow for back taxiing. So if you see the blue area, those are all areas open to taxiing for aircraft and everything. So as you can see here, this portion of the runway is closed for taxi purposes. But anywhere where you see the blue dashed lines, that will be open. So what will happen is all the aircraft, the air carriers will be able to come down here and then taxi around to Juliet and use the south runway. You may ask, why is this portion closed and this portion closed? And the reason why is because of safety. A project a couple years ago, we actually just kept the runway completely open for taxiing purposes to try to alleviate any issues. What ended up happening was we had an aircraft talk to the tower, say that they were going to take off on runway 28 left, spun around and took off on the closed runway. So with that, that's why we closed those areas off to give a visual clue and barricade across that, just to try to eliminate that. And that's been in coordination with the FAA. So phase one here, that is essentially going to be 90 days, calendar days construction. So what will end up happening is we'll remove all the existing asphalt and everything, and then dig down and then rebuild it to current standards and everything for the aircraft that we're planning on using the apron. And this is all for the new Concourse A. So this is just prelude, but the reason why we're doing this work is we have an issue with the lack of RON spots, which is remote overnight. So with this will provide up to 3 to 4 spots for air carriers to provide for RON spots for them. So with that, like I said, we're constructing the east de-ice apron as well concurrently with that. And that project is scheduled for 83 days. So you can see that everything's pretty tight schedule-wise, and we're trying to make sure that everything is taken care of. Also with the east de-ice apron, we have to make sure that customs, it remains open. So that's why we're pretty much expanding everything to the west there. Any questions at this time? Okay.
Marcus, just a quick question. Did you mention why the north runway gets closed for these two projects?
I thought I did, but the reason why the north runway,
I definitely got the back taxi, but why is the runway closed at all? I mean, can't you run both runways with the construction?
the tower does not like to have taxiing aircraft on a back taxiing on an open
back taxi.
Yeah, so this has been coordinated with the tower. So and everything on that.
Okay.
So this is how we've done it, and we think that it reduces, the safety issues as much as possible with that. And that's one reason, like I said, why we're trying to construct both of them at the same time, just to limit the time the runway is actually closed. So, and then this is phase 1B of the concourse, and this will be essentially the reconstruction right here, right in front of gate C11. If you guys are familiar with Alaska and everything, and that's the end jet bridge out on the one walkway. And that's some of our worst pavement. So that's some of the tightest areas to get done. So this is scheduled for 60 days. And as you can see down on the east here, the east de-ice apron will be constructed and open. So when this is actually going on. So with that, the runway is scheduled to be closed for approximately 150 calendar days.
Marcus?
Yeah.
You may have mentioned this and I didn't hear it, but does that impact any of the flight schedules that are coming in and out? Is it going to decrease the number that can be?
It does not decrease. You may have, they may have some longer wait times with the taxiing and everything, but it does not decrease the amount of flights coming in. It may impact, I will say it may impact some GA with being able to do some training like touch and goes here, just because what happens is the flight pattern gets so busy just with one runway. So as Rebecca was discussing, it kind of gets faded out, but here you can see will be the new area of pavement for the Concourse A apron. And that's going to be concrete. It's going to be approximately, the concrete itself will be about 16 inches thick on that. So it's a sizable project to do. So, and that's to carry all the aircraft. We're thinking that it's going to be mostly like 737s, and that's our design aircraft for that is a design group 3 aircraft. So can we go back, Rebecca? Sorry. So with that, as you can see, like right here in this southwest corner, it gets super, super tight. So that's why we're closing this portion of the shade hangers, just because everything is so tight to get in there and everything. So that's the reason why. And then also with this, you can see these areas. These are going to be concrete or asphalt islands and everything. And what these are designed for one, the new or relocated Echo, taxiway Echo is planned to be about right here in this location. So that'll stop any direct access to Echo when it's actually relocated. And then also this island here and that island, we're designing it for temporary snow storage during a snow event. That way our facilities can plow snow into that area and then keep the apron actually open. And then once the snow stops, they'll be able to come in, bucket it, and take it over to the Firehawk Pond. So
how does that new concrete design compare to the existing designs around the terminal?
It's very, very similar to the concrete design for like Concourse B and everything. A lot of that is around 16 inches as well. So it's very similar. It's just the size of aircraft, and we're designing everything for about a design group 3, which is up to, for design group aircraft, that's up to a 767, but we don't get those very often. But the majority of it the critical aircraft would be a 737 or an Airbus A321, which is very similar in size and weight. So the east de-ice apron here, as you can see, is essentially, this is the existing, and then we will be adding on to the west there. That will be asphalt. And what this does is this relocates the VSR. And then what's that?
Vehicle service.
Yes, the vehicle service road, I apologize. So the vehicle service road, and it gets everyone out and around. And also what this does is it opens it up for 3 spots for de-icing. So 3 737s can simultaneously use that area to be de-iced. So and then also it keeps this area of it open for customs.
Marcus, currently, is it just one plane at a time that can be de-iced?
Essentially, yes. 1737, you can do 2 Embraer 175s, and that's just because of the size of the aircraft, right? So the Embraer 175 is a lot smaller than the 737. So that would wrap up this year's construction. Going into 2026 would be the Concourse A apron phase 2, and what that'll be is, I'll go get into that. And then also we are starting the runway 10 left, 28 right reconstruction project. So that's a major project. So with phase 2, essentially that completes the south side of the apron for the new concourse. And you can see it right here in the light portion. That would be that area. So that construction will have pretty limited impacts for that construction to any airfield operations. The only thing that it does impact, of course, is Alaska right here, because we're working right next to them. And just like in phase 1 and everything, we've been working with Alaska. We've been giving them the plans. We've already met with them, and we're providing exhibits and everything to make sure that we try to limit the impacts to their operation. So, and then right here's the 10 left reconstruction. So right now we have it essentially as 3 phases. This would be a seal coat on the south runway just to preserve that pavement and because it's going to be essentially receiving most of the aircraft for the next 2 years when this goes on. So we've already done both runways with the seal coat, but we want to do it again on the south runway just to give it longevity and try to improve it as much as possible. That right there is about a 30-day process, and that's because of all the paint and everything that has to be done as well. So we're trying to see if we can work that into this fall. But one of the issues is the Concourse A apron and how that falls construction wise and everything. So that's our plan, but if it gets delayed or anything like that, we may have to wait till next spring to do that. So then, can you go back? Sorry. So then the 10 left face would be this light blue area. And we were planning on doing rehab on this runway this year. But what ended up happening during our geotechnical investigation in in July, we were out there getting ready to actually open this because of the taxiway Delta project that we completed. And we were walking out on the runway, and as we were stepping, you could see water actually coming up through the asphalt surface. So that's never a good thing. So we were out there, and we had one kind of bad area that we wanted to core to see if we had to do a patch before. And as we were coring it, the core has water to cool the bit. Well, and Beth was out with me, so I was like, hey, let's go out and look at this. This is a great deal. Well, as we're doing it, they're coring about a 6 foot by 10 foot area of the asphalt just lifts up straight up about 3 inches. So what ended up happening was, as they were coring, you do asphalt in lifts. The top lift became delaminated from the second lift, and then it just became like a water bed. So it was just riding on that water that was caused. So we ended up having to do an emergency patch on the runway right there for that. So with that, we were just planning on doing a rehab, like a mill. But with that, we did a more extensive geotechnical investigation and found out that there's some asphalt stripping, which the water removes the oil from the mix, and then it loses its structural stability. So what is ending up happening is we're going to be removing all the asphalt and everything out there and rebuilding the runway, just like it would be a brand new runway. In some of those areas out there on that north runway, the asphalt is up to 36 inches thick. So 3 feet of asphalt. So, and that's just because of previous deals where it was cheaper time-wise just to pave over it, right? So asphalt was cheaper and everything. So what they would do is just pave over it. And what that has done is cause some long-term issues that is no longer an approved method of doing things. So any questions on that? So that essentially phase 1 will be about 180 calendar days. So with this, it's hard to see is also will be taken care of two mod the standards, FAA standard issues with this, where we have a vertical curve in the first quarter of our runway. And that is no longer allowed by current FAA standards. So what we will be doing is we will be removing those vertical curves and going to a more tangent section. So that will get rid of any MODA standards for that runway. So that runway will be up to the most current standards and everything going forward. So that's what that was kind of that exhibits showing. So 2027 will be phase 2 of runway 10 left, 28 right, reconstruction, phase 2. With that, we will be having to reconstruct taxiway Mike between Alpha and 10 right. And also we'll be reconstructing taxiway Papa. So, and that will be the purple area here. So with the previous, your vertical curve is essentially right in this area. So with that, it's low. So we have to build the runway up in this area. So with that, to meet current standards for all your slopes and everything for the runway, we're actually having to rebuild Mike that goes into Alpha as well. And then we'll be rebuilding this portion of Papa just because it's a good time to do it. And that hasn't been touched in several years. again, this is about 180 days. And the reason why this area was picked was essentially we can open the runways between the winter. So we have both runways operational, and we're tying in essentially at the same grades in that area. So that's why that area was actually picked. And also just to make sure that it can all be done in one construction season, you know, each half. Any questions? Okay. Well, 28 and 29 then. So as soon as we get done taking care of the north runway, we're on to the south runway. So the south runway needs to be reconstructed as well. That asphalt and everything is also coming to its design life, its useful life and everything. And also with the FAA, they do not like the displaced thresholds as we have here. They think that it causes some issues with wrong runway landings and everything. So we are on the rim, and that is to help safety and everything. So the plan is to realign the thresholds for both runways. So the runways will be identical. They'll be two 10,000 foot, and the threshold will line up identical with each other. So one won't be longer on one end and shorter on the other. And doing so, the runway 10 ride on the east portion will be lengthening that by about 1,700 feet. And then on the east in 2029, we'll be reducing that by about 1,400 feet. So that will equal, because right now the north runway is 10,000 feet long, and the south runway, I believe, is 9,763 feet long. So just a little bit of difference, right? So yeah. So in 2028, we will start the reconstruction and realignment, and that includes runway 10 right, phase 1, taxiway Papa construction, some relocation and replacement of FAA nav aids, and the removal of taxiway Charlie. So if you would like, go on to the next slide. So that is this light blue area over here. So as you can see, it's been extended. So right here will be the new, I'm really shaky for some reason. I need to, right here's Papa. So this will be the extension of Papa between the two runways, right? And that will attach Papa to both runways now. And then also it'll do the tie-ins and everything here, and the extension, like I said. So also with that, we're working with the Air National Guard because their mission is potentially changing. So we're coordinating that to see it with any new changes that may be required for their mission. So we include that with the design and building, so we're not closing the runway multiple times, right? So one is the potential for arrestor barriers. So we've been in coordination with the Air National Guard to make sure that we're incorporating that as well, if need to be. So that will be year 2028, and also that will include the relocation of the localizer and some of the glide slope and the ALSEF 2 lights on the east end. So then the purple here will be in 2029. So in 2029, essentially this area to right here will be reconstructed. And then what will end up happening is Juliet will actually go away because Juliet is a non-standard. You're not allowed to have an end around taxiway because what ends up happening is aircraft and gets confused sometimes and will come into this area here, and that's the actual approach to the north runway. So what it does is it alleviates that, and you just have a taxiway that connects to the end of the runway. So what will end up happening is this portion of the runway may get removed. And then this portion of Juliet will get removed. And then also the big bridge that will also get removed. Because with the end of the runway here, now you can have your ILS lights, your instrument landing lights, and everything be put here, and they don't have to go across the road anymore. Everything's getting shifted to the east. So I know that real quick and everything, but is there any questions?
I have a question. You mentioned the use of two, Madam Chair. You mentioned the use of two different materials, concrete, I think for the aprons, and are all the runways asphalt? I'm kind of confused.
The runways are asphalt currently, and our discussions with the FAA currently is the north runway, when we rebuild that, will remain asphalt. Now the south runway, it may not. It may actually go to concrete or Portland cement. And the reason why is one of the requirements for the arresting barriers is you have to have 2,000 feet of concrete for that arrestor barrier. So you would have 2,000-foot pieces of concrete in amongst asphalt. And also the concrete PCC is more expensive up front, but it has a longer design life. So we are looking at that. The FAA we are in discussions with, and they are favorable to go into the PCC pavement on the south runway if everything lines up correctly, you know, with the design and the potential with the new mission with the guard and everything.
Marcus, did you intentionally say that the west extension of the south runway may be removed? So is there a decision matrix there on whether it stays?
Yeah, I did say may, and the reason why is also for the F-16s is they prefer to have, it's called an overrun, where the FAA only does like a blast pad, but with the military, they like to have an overrun of approximately 1,000 feet. And we're thinking it may be a beneficial deal, since we already have the asphalt there, to keep that and provide an overrun at a greatly reduced cost to the military and to us for that. So try to kill like two birds with one stone, right? So it would save for the removal of that portion of the runway, but then it's also beneficial to the Air Force and their mission with an overrun for the aircraft.
Marcus, thank you for the details that you provided and also the reasons why, because I think the reasons why are very helpful to us to understand, especially if we get a question. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and if you get any questions or anything, I mean, definitely feel free to contact me and the staff and everything. We would love to answer. Okay? Any other questions?
Well, thank you, Marcus. That was, you
Super.
guys are doing incredible work.
Thank
So,
you.
Thank you for everything that you do. Okay, so moving on, fifth item on the agenda is our questions and comments from the general public. Just as a reminder, this is a time where the general public can ask questions and comments of the commission and airport staff. Discussion per issue not to exceed 5 minutes, and meeting time constraints or requests for final action may require deferral for a future meeting. So with that said, is there anyone that would like to address the commission or the staff? Be online? Excellent. Then, seeing that there's none, I would, make a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that the March 5th meeting of the Boise Airport Commission hereby be.
Second.
On favor?
I
Aye.
Hi.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week.